not everything has to be like a human. Not everything has to be like a human. There's many things on this planet that are non-human. And as human beings, we have this tendency to put everything in this category of it must be like us. But the dog, for instance, the dog, I'm a dog trainer by trade. The dog is nothing like a human, but we look at it in this anthropomorphic way. The Bigfoot is the same thing. I know that it sounds outrageous, and I'm saying, well, it's either, from another planet or it's an interdimensional creature. But when you think about the universe and how vast it is it really that far-fetched? Is it really that far-fetched that something could get here? Certainly, as physics, as we know it, our physical world, it's impossible for us to travel these great distances. But is it possible that something in this vast universe has figured out how to move through time space quickly and be able to come to this planet? It is. It's definitely possible. These are actual parts of a Bigfoot. And there's always going to be disbelievers, and there's nothing that I can do about that. People say, well, they're too light. They've been in a freezer for 65 years. By the way, my father acquired these September 23rd, 1953. So he kept them in the freezer because of exactly what I'm dealing with. It's like skeptics, and it's a difficult thing to try and convince people of something that, is going to change reality for everyone. So they are much lighter than they would be because they're dried out. If you put a steak in a freezer for a year, pull it out, you're going to see it's lost a lot of volume as far as weight goes. And that would be true of these. It's not totally light. It's not. It's a heavy item, but you can tell that it's dried out. It's desiccated. That's just how it is. This foot that I'm holding right now, this, I talk about like most of them were dissected or butchered, however you want to talk about it. This one is interesting in that it comes from a Bigfoot that is almost complete, except the foot was cut off. And I don't know why my father and Morty started cutting this one up, but they started to cut this one up and then they ended up leaving it whole. There are a few of them that are totally whole that have not been dissected, butchered, however you want to talk about it. And we'll look at those too. But this one, I'll bring the whole one, and we can look at that, and we can discuss it under the video. You can discuss it whether you think it's real or not. That's fine. I understand being skeptical. I get it. There's nothing wrong with that. Healthy skepticism is probably wise, but I'm telling you, these are real. They are real, and this is just a fact that, like, not everything has to be like a human. And because these appear to be mammalian doesn't mean that they're mammalian at all. We do have several Bigfoot specimens for the scientific community to look at. And these are 2 feet from 2 of the specimens. One is a larger Bigfoot, and as you see, it's quite large. It's a very, very large animal. This would be an adult. And then we do have several that are younger, and this would be a foot and portion of a leg from a younger one. And the thing that I want to talk about today is that I've talked about this before, and some of the science community knows about this, that the Bigfoot really are nothing like human beings. They're nothing like human beings, and a lot of times I've put out stuff in regards to Bigfoot, and it's had like an appearance of, admittedly, entertainment. And the reason for that was that I'm trying to bring people in to realize that Bigfoot is a actual creature that comes to this planet. And I know you're not going to like this. A lot of people are going to say I'm bullshitting you, but it really isn't a creature that's from this planet. There's some evidence, and we'll go over the evidence later, but there's some evidence that what they're doing is they're a biological recording device. And they're a biological recording device for the Greys. Now, there's things that are definitely make it apparent that this is not a creature from this planet. Yes, it looks mammalian, but it isn't, and I'll show you why. One thing that is very highly unusual about the Bigfoot is that it has like a magnetic property to it. And I've talked about this before, and people are like, no, you're bullshit, you're bullshit. No, it's a fact. So, like, it has like a, it's basically a big magnet. So it doesn't really matter, where anywhere on the body. Some parts are more magnetic than others. And I've talked about this before, and there's a lot of people out there in the Bigfoot community, but saying that this is BS, but it's not. What I'm saying is it really isn't anything like a human being, and I've talked about this before, that the Bigfoot, they like rusty metal. It's no joke. They like rusty metal. Sort of like, how mammals need salt? Well, the Bigfoot needs rusty metal, and they do the same thing that like a deer would do on a salt lick. They're looking for that. Now, the smaller ones are not as magnetic as the larger ones. And you can look at this one, it's got magnetic properties, but you can't tell because this is too heavy. It's gonna fall, right? It's gonna fall. It's not as magnetic, and it appears that they gain their magnetic properties as they get older. Larger ones are more magnetic. So this can hold something lighter, so it still is magnetic, but it's not as magnetic as, like, say, this, the larger one. People ask, is DNA, but yes, we've had the DNA looked at. There are major universities that are looking at these items. So I will bring out the Bigfoot that comes with this. I think I'm saying somewhere a little bit under 6 foot tall. Something that is unusual about this Bigfoot is that it is at this state where it doesn't look like it's fully grown, but it's almost 6 foot tall. And you'll notice that there's a difference in the feet. The feet of the smaller ones, this is conjecture certainly, they have more of an appearance of a human foot. And we think that is so that they don't get busted walking around. It looks more like a human foot. That's what we think. We don't know. But you'll see that it's a rather large creature, even though that it has like the small foot. Like compared to this, it appears by looking at the Bigfoot that we have, that at a point, right about this point, the animal is going through puberty and it starts gaining girth. So when I bring this Bigfoot out, you'll notice it's sort of slender like a human, but it's totally non-human. You can tell it's non-human. It's a Bigfoot. It's just one that hasn't, totally matured out. It seems like at a point they start gaining girth, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing you'll see, like it's got shorter legs and a kind of long torso, the big giant head. It's a big creature, I guarantee you. Even though that its feet are relatively small, if the thing was coming at you, this Bigfoot was coming at you, you'd be terrified, you'd be best to run because it'd tear a human apart. The size of it, much bigger than me. I mean, I'm not a huge, I'm about 5'7.5", 5'8", 125. This thing must be under 6 foot, maybe 190, something like that, but it has smaller feet. What I'm saying is at a point, their feet start enlarging, the body starts enlarging, and then you get the adult Bigfoot. This is not an adult, I'm calling it a juvenile. I don't know what it is, a teenager, a cub. It's still a cub, but it's a big animal. Stay tuned, we got more coming up with Bigfoot, and please subscribe.